This is Vincente Tyler Vernigello, VTV, and this is my opening statement for the BB gun case. I was arrested on the 12th of August, 2021, over a BB gun. I went to my mother's house to hang out with my little sister who just got home from California. And I thought that the BB gun might impress her boyfriend enough for me to be a part of my sister's life for a little bit. When I showed up to my mother's house, Brittany and Dylan, her boyfriend, were smoking marijuana and THC dabs in the garage. And the second they saw the BB gun, they immediately said, "You're crazy. You can't have a gun." And they started running down the street calling 911. The whole time I was trying to show them that it wasn't a real firearm. I took out the bullets, tried to show them they weren't real bullets. I tried pulling the trigger and pointing it around and trying to show them that it's not a real firearm. Chill out. So, after they started running down the street calling 911, I went inside the house and said, "Mom, Brittany's calling the cops again." A few months earlier, Brittany called the police on me for hitting her or backhanding her in front of my mother in the kitchen, and my mother was sitting there the whole time, and she said, "Brittany, Vinny never touched you." Brittany has been known to blame me for stuff being broken in the house just in order to watch her stepfather, my stepfather and her real father, beat me. And Brittany has always tried to get me in trouble. Same with my mother, same with my stepfather. My mother has been suspected by the Community Reach Center mental health organization of having Munchausen by proxy disease and or / fictitious by proxy disorder, meaning she makes the people that she is caregiving for look more sick or mentally ill than they really are in order to get either money or sympathy. Now, my mother has also called the police on me every 5 minutes my entire life. I have been kicked out of every apartment every 6 months of my life over noise complaints and welfare checks created by my mother, who lived in Parker while I lived in Aurora. And so my family are known for trying to get me in trouble with the mental health system or the judicial system, both. Either that or trying to get me killed. So this is no surprise to me that something like this will happen to me. This has happened to me every 6 months of my life. I moved out when I was 16, and I never looked back, yet I still can't get out of the claws of my mother. So I was arrested on the 12th of August over a BB gun, and I didn't do anything. The BB gun wasn't even loaded. It had no pellets. It had no CO2. Nobody was in any danger in any way, shape, or form. All I was trying to do was impress my little sister's boyfriend long enough to be a part of my little sister's life. I went to jail on the 12th of August, 2021, and I sat in a holding cell for a year, 9 months to be exact. Now, according to the United States constitutional right to a fast and speedy trial, you have 3 months to restore my competency, and you have 6 months to prove whether I am guilty or not without a reasonable doubt. Within the first month, I fired my public defender, Leah Maloney, and she raised my competency. And my competency was raised for 9 months sitting in a holding cell. Now, and then I finally went to the Pueblo State Mental Hospital, and they restored my competency within a couple of weeks. So why I sat in a holding cell without anybody even trying to restore my competency in any way, shape, or form whatsoever for 9 months when they should have restored it within 3 months, even though the mental hospital could restore it within a couple of weeks, and all the mental health staff said, we don't understand why they raised your competency to begin with. You know the law better than most of us. And then I went back to jail and I finally bonded out. Now, while I was in that jail, they never gave me any of my commissary. They gave me my tablet just long enough to find out that my mother sent me a picture of my cat being shot with a BB gun by somebody. And then they took the tablet away. Every time you would push the intercom button, they would say they would get right on it and to send a kite. Well, they shut down the electronic kiosk so that none of us inmates could send electronic kites. And they forced us to write paper kites, but they never sent any of the paper kites. So there was no contact with the outside world the entire time I sat in that jail. They locked me in a cell 24/7. They did not let me take a shower. They did not let me make a phone call. They did not even let me out to stretch my legs for 9 months straight. The only reason I would ever be able to get out long enough was either for them to clean my cell or to try and get me under control, because being locked in a cell 24/7 for 9 months straight will drive the most sane person insane. On the other side, there was the female pod in the orange pod, K pod, King pod, which is the mental health pod. And the deputies would multiple times get all the female inmates butt naked in front of them, looking at the females on the TV screens and stuff, and shutting off the shower the second they put soap in their hair so that they have to come out of the shower butt naked without even a towel. I mean, that DCSO jail, Douglas County, Castle Rock, it has needed to be investigated and looked at for over 10 years. I was first arrested in the DCSO jail 10 years ago when I was 18 over Facebook harassment. I sat in jail for a year in the same cell that somebody died in because they locked the cellmate or the inmate in the cell and just left him there to die. And the man was dead for 2 weeks before I got into the cell. In 2 weeks, they didn't even notice that there was a dead body in their own jail. And that's why they had to at least walk by your cell every 30 minutes. Because that's how they kill people in DCSO. They lock you in a cell, they shut your water off, and they refuse to feed you. And then accidents happen, no harm, no foul. The inmate shouldn't have been such a mean person. Now, jail inmates are not criminals. Jails are holding cells, and you aren't supposed to be in a holding cell longer than 6 months. So none of these people have even gone to court and been proven guilty yet. So they're not criminals yet. Criminals go to prison. Criminals don't sit in a holding cell for longer than a year trying to find out whether they even did the crime or not. You guys in DCSO have veterans in that jail being treated like criminals before they even go to court by a bunch of deputies that haven't even become full-fledged cops yet, going around acting like they're soldiers and sergeants. You know, most people have to earn those stripes. And your deputies that haven't even become cops yet are going around treating veterans like criminals before they even go to court. For years, sitting in a holding cell eating nothing but crackers. Now that's the whole reason we have the United States Constitution Bill of Rights. My second lawyer was hired by my mother for $2,000, and I fired him within the first time I talked to him. It took a month for the DCSO jail to get their stuff together enough for me to even be able to talk to my lawyer on a TV screen. And within 5 minutes of talking to him, he said that he would try and get the charge dropped to a misdemeanor. And I said, no, we're going to court. And he told me, oh, you're just trying to fight the system. And I said, well, I have United States constitutional rights. And he told me, well, the Constitution has been slowly corroded for the past couple hundred years, and you shouldn't fight the system. Two statements that contradict each other. So I fired him because he refused to use the money that I paid him to go to court. He just wanted to get a plea deal, just like every other lawyer and public defender, and get the case over as quickly as possible, take the money, and run. He didn't want to go to court. He didn't want to actually do anything. So I fired my public defender within the first month, Leah Maloney, and then I fired my hired lawyer the first time I talked to him because he refused to be a lawyer. He just wanted to be a second district attorney, just like the public defenders. They don't want to be a lawyer. They just want to get through the cases as fast as possible so that they can be a real lawyer one day, so that they can be a second district attorney in the courtroom. Now, I did not sign up for this 2 DAs, 1 flag porno, but I fired my public defender, Leah Maloney, within the first month because I pled not guilty on the first day. But they refused to listen to me. And I fired my other lawyer, hired lawyer, because he refused to do his job and go to court. I've been pleading not guilty since day one. And the judge would know that. If they would listen to me once a month, they would come up to my cell with a little tablet where the judge was sitting on a little TV screen. And it was a different judge every time. And every judge said, well, I'm not very familiar with the case, so I really couldn't say. So why are you the judge then? And they would mute me. So I couldn't even say anything in court. And the whole time I'm trying to say, I fired that public defender. She does not work for me. She cannot say anything for me. Leah Maloney does not work for me. She is fired. But I was muted in the courtroom, so I couldn't say anything. And it was a different lawyer every time. Every lawyer's had the same thing to say. Oh, well, you know, I don't know nothing about the case, so I really can't say. And it's like, well, then why are you the judge? The district attorney gave me an offer of 2 years probation with court-ordered mental health treatment over class 4 felony burglary. Now, I'm wondering, how do you burglarize your own house? Because my mother's house is my childhood home that I grew up in Parker when I was a teenager. You know, I got guitars down in that basement. I still have my bedroom in the basement. I have posters and clothes and all my childhood stuff still in that house. I'm just wondering how you burglarize your own house. But the DA thought that it was a good offer to give me 2 years probation and court-ordered mental health treatment for 2 years with a class 4 felony burglary. I refused the offer. I said I was not guilty. But they refused to let me go to court. And my own public defender, Leah Maloney, my first public defender, the first lawyer that I fired within a month, raised my competency for 9 months straight. So, as I was in that jail, they refused to give me commissary. They fed me nothing but Nutriloaf. And Nutriloaf looks and smells like human feces. And it tastes even worse. That's all they would feed me most of the time. I think they did feed me on Thanksgiving. But any of the food that they did give me, they would also mess with. They'd put boogers in it or put my medication in it or something like that, which is attempted manslaughter. But they're cops, so they can't get in trouble for that. And they shut the water off. And so I sat in a cell with nothing but a pair of pants, no mattress, no blanket, no shirt on my back, no socks, no shoes, no underwear, just pants. No commissary, no pencil, no paper, nothing. For 9 months straight. Every now and then they'd give me some food, maybe once a month. And they'd shut the water off. So I'd just sit in that cell all day, every day, waiting for somebody to walk by my cell every 30 minutes just so that they can flip me off and laugh at me. About once a month, the mental health staff would come and wake me up just so that they can say that there's nothing they can do for me and they can't do their job and they can't help me. And they're a counselor, but they can't give me counseling, and they're mental health staff, but they can't restore my competency, and I'd have to wait until I go to a mental hospital for 2 weeks to restore my competency. And then once a month, they would come up with a little TV screen to show me my court, and I'm muted. I can't say anything. And the judge is just going to do a continuance. That's all the judges do at DCSO is continuance. And I wrote kites, as many kites as I could, every single day. Paper kites, of course. The electronic system was shut down, so I would write, I think, 2 paper kites a day is what you're allowed. And they never sent a single one of them. They did not send a single kite out. All the electronic kites that I did end up sending were never answered. They're all completely ignored. They either tell you to ask your deputy or talk to someone else, which I never really understood because it's a kite, so if you can't handle the kite, then you should probably send the kite to someone who can handle it. I don't understand why it's my job to do everything while sitting in a cell, but they're cops. They know better. They know better. So, and yes, the deputies, they tell you they'll get right on it, send a kite. They shut off the intercom after a while, so the magic button with the talk box didn't even work. I had to wait for 30 minutes for them to pass by my cell before I could even say anything to them, and they would only pass by my cell, flip me off, and laugh. Now, I asked for reviews of the jail footage multiple times while I was in there. They never did anything about it. And once I got out, I asked my second public defender, my third lawyer on this case, Meredith Wheeler. I immediately asked her, could you go get the jail footage of me almost dying in that DCSO jail? And Meredith Wheeler said that wasn't her job. She's just my public defender. She's just my defense. She's just my representation. She's just my lawyer. It's not her job to do lawyer stuff for me. So I could not get a hold of the DCSO jail footage. And according to all the deputies and people that work in DCSO, they delete all the video footage after 3 months or 9 months or whatever. They gave me a different answer every time on when they delete the evidence. And I never understood that. I don't understand why cops in jails would delete all the video footage evidence of something, but tampering with evidence is okay for a cop. They're above the law. So I could never get a hold of the DCSO jail footage of me almost dying in that cell. Now, supposedly all the video footage is supposed to be permanently stored on the CIA database, the Central Intelligence Agency's database, and all the evidence and jail footage and all that stuff is supposed to be permanently stored on the CIA database. And DCSO is not a privately owned facility anymore. It is a government facility. So I would think that the government would be pretty angry with DCSO for deleting video footage, for all the stuff that they're doing to people. I mean, they rounded up pretty much everybody in Douglas County the time that I was in there. I mean, there were just people coming in and out of that jail for stupid stuff. They were just going around kidnapping everybody. They'd kidnap you, sit you in a cell, either take a plea deal or sit in jail. And it's called extortion, assertion, when you try to threaten somebody into taking a plea deal or something like that. And then there's also collusion, when the public defender and the district attorney work together on the same case or work with the judge. Or I've also heard some of the inmates say that the district attorney paid off the jury to find him guilty. So that's bribery and extortion. Cruel and unusual punishment. You're supposed to give every inmate an hour out, at least an hour a day. It's called 23-1, not 24/7. So that they can take a shower, stretch their legs, make a phone call, be treated like a decent human being. Well, DCSO has 24/7 lockdown, which is cruel and unusual punishment according to the Constitution and the Geneva Convention, but that's okay because they're cops, so it doesn't matter. And so I sat in that jail being terrorized by deputies, thinking that they're cops, pretending to be soldiers for 9 months straight because I was incompetent. And I pled not guilty on the first day. So when I finally got out, my mom finally bonded me out after I went to the mental hospital and proved that I'm competent to proceed. Now, my mental health status, I have been diagnosed with trauma-based PTSD by the Community Reach Center Mental Health Network. I was diagnosed with trauma-based PTSD and depression. Now, when I went to the Pueblo State Mental Hospital, they labeled me schizophrenic, multiple personality disorder, bipolar, and everything under the sun, even though I'm competent to proceed. Now, I don't understand how you could be schizophrenic, bipolar, multiple personality disorder, etc., and still have a conversation with someone, let alone be competent enough to proceed in court. But different mental doctor, different diagnosis, different pill. That's how they make their money. They give you a diagnosis so that they can push the pill that they need to push on you so that they can get an extra check in the pocket directly from the pharmacies. The mental doctors, they make extra money with every pill that they prescribe. So the diagnosis is absurd at best. Community Reach Center diagnosed me with trauma-based PTSD and depression, and that sounds a lot more sense to me, especially since I'm able to be competent to proceed, than every other diagnosis under the sun. But this isn't about my mental illness. And that's what I've been trying to tell my public defender, Meredith Wheeler, this entire time she has been working for me. Now, Meredith Wheeler, I fired her around early September, and the next court date should be September 23rd, 2022. And I fired Meredith Wheeler, but she, she's the public defender, so she doesn't have to listen to her client. And I said that I want to represent myself. I do not want a lawyer. I do not want a public defender. I do not need a second district attorney in the courtroom. And I'm more than willing to represent myself for this BB gun case. Now, they charged me 4 felonies over this BB gun. 2 felony menacing, 1 felony burglary, and 1 felony disorderly conduct. Now, the menacing means that I was trying to menaceize my little sister and her boyfriend with a BB gun that was unloaded. And the burglary means that I was burglarizing my own house and I wasn't welcome there. And the disorderly conduct means that I was being disorderly and with my conduct over a BB gun. Now, I didn't do anything. No victim, no crime. Nobody's hurt. Nothing was broken. Nothing was stolen. All I was trying to do was hang out with my little sister and her boyfriend. The idea that I had was maybe if I go over there, show off my BB gun to her boyfriend, it'd impress him long enough for me to hang out with my little sister. Nobody else was home. So the only two witnesses is my little sister and her boyfriend, Brittany and Dylan. And they were both high on marijuana, so their statements aren't even that credible. They're high on marijuana and panicked over a BB gun because they thought it was a real firearm. I don't understand how that's a crime to anybody. Accidents happen. But the cops know better. So I have been dealing with this over a year. The first time I was locked in DCSO when I was 18, 10 years ago for Facebook harassment in a cell that somebody died in. My girlfriend, Brianna Patrick Swain, OD'd at 17. 10 years later, I'm locked in the same cell that people have died in from being locked in a cell and ignored. Negligence. And my second girlfriend committed suicide, Desiree Ann Bistagon. So I have been locked in the same cell, and I have grieved over both of my dead girlfriends in the same cell that somebody has died in over Facebook harassment and a BB gun. Now, these DCSO employees, from the judge to the cop, the DA to the public defender, have all been trying to kill me over a BB gun for over a year now. According to the United States Constitutional Bill of Rights, I have the United States constitutional right to a fast and speedy trial with a 6-month deadline starting at the second of the arrest. You have 3 months to raise my competency and restore my competency so that I can be competent to proceed. This should have all been over and done with 6 months ago. They arrested me on the 12th of August, 2021. It is now September 2022. It's been over a year. You're 6 months past the deadline. And I ordered my public defender, Meredith Wheeler, to file a dismissal under the United States constitutional right to a fast and speedy trial, but she told me she couldn't do that. I asked Meredith Wheeler to get me the jail footage of me almost dying in the DCSO jail, but she couldn't do that. I asked Meredith Wheeler if she could do anything. But Meredith Wheeler kept repeating to me that she was focused on looking at all of my mental health records. Now, since I'm competent to proceed, my mental health status has nothing to do with this BB gun case whatsoever any longer. I'm competent to proceed, meaning mental health has no place in this BB gun case, but Meredith Wheeler insisted on spending all her time looking through the mental health records of my past over a BB gun case. She said that she was going to use the mental health status to talk to the DA and try and get it dropped to a misdemeanor, but I've told her and the other lawyers multiple times that I am not taking a plea deal. I am not taking a charge over a BB gun. You guys are not going to ruin my life over a BB gun, and you are not going to sweep this one under the table or sweep this one under the rug. And I told all my lawyers that multiple times. I've left multiple voice messages on the public defender's office's voicemail. I have talked to the judges. I have talked to the DA. I have talked to everybody through kites and voice messages for a year. I have told them I am not guilty. I plead not guilty since day one. I demand my right to a fast and speedy trial. I have the right to represent myself. I fired all three of my lawyers, Leah Maloney, the public defender, and the lawyer that my mother hired for $2,000, and I fired public defender Meredith Wheeler as well. I have the right to represent myself. I don't need them. I pled not guilty on day one. You guys had a 6-month deadline to prove without a reasonable doubt whether I was guilty or not. And you all refused to do your job. It seems like the only people in DCSO that are willing to do anything are all the deputies running around and kidnapping everybody, while the judges, the district attorney, and the public defenders just sit there, refusing to read any of the kites, refusing to read any of the text messages, refusing to listen to any of the voice messages. And it has been over a year. Now, even if I'm found not guilty without a reasonable doubt in the court of law over a BB gun, these felonies never go away. It will always show on my record that I was charged with these 4 felonies. They impounded my car. They never gave me any of my commissary. Now, I pay taxes just like everybody else. There's the price tag, and then there's the taxes after the price tag with everything that everybody buys worldwide. Everybody pays taxes, whether they like it or not, except I do not get a tax refund each year. I am on Social Security income. I have been since I was 17 years old. I moved out at 16, lived in my car for a year, and got on SSI and got a motel at 17 years old. Ever since then, I have been on SSI, and I have been living off of $700 a month, while everybody else around me spends $1,000 in a day. And I don't get tax refunds. I don't get tax returns, but I still pay taxes, just like every other person in the world. And all these taxes go directly in these judges' pockets, these district attorneys' pockets, these public defenders' pockets, and all of these deputies' pockets, just for them to sit there and waste court time, kidnap people, lock them in holding cells for years as they sit in there eating crackers, wondering if they're even guilty or not. Something should have been done about this DCSO facility 10 years ago. The building isn't even up to code. There isn't a single GFI, ground fault interrupter, which is an outlet specifically made to be put around water or anything dangerous so that you don't electrocute yourself. There isn't a single GFI in the entire building. And you've got inmates down there flooding their cells just in order to get out of their cell for a second with a bunch of electrical outlets that have no ground fault interrupter. Everybody in that jail could easily get electrocuted. The building isn't even up to code. None of them are doing their job. They're all torturing people, treating them like criminals, and they haven't even been found guilty yet. Kidnapping everybody in sight. Refusing to let any of them go to court or trial. For years, people are sitting in a cell for a crime that they haven't even committed. Now, they've been trying to kill me over a BB gun for over a year now. Now, the judge is sitting in that chair because of my tax dollars. And the judge has to swear an oath to protect the United States Constitution against both foreign and domestic enemies by any means necessary. The judge has to swear that oath so that the judge can protect our rights and follow the law and make sure that the court is in order. That's why the judge is there. No one can interrupt the opening statement. The opening statement can go as long as it has to. And the judge is there to protect my rights and the alleged victim's rights. The district attorney is there to protect the alleged victims and the state. The public defender is there to be my defense, my representation. The public defender should not be talking to the district attorney about whether I'm guilty or not in a plea deal. The district attorney makes the plea deal, not the public defender. Mental illness has no place in the judicial system. If they are competent to proceed, then mental illness is relevant. Now the jury is there to prove without a reasonable doubt that the defendant is guilty without a reasonable doubt or not guilty without a reasonable doubt. The jury is the judge, not the judge. The judge is there to keep order in the court. Now, these two alleged victims, my little sister and her boyfriend, are not victims. Nothing happened. They were not in harm's way. They were in no danger whatsoever. I went over there to hang out with them. I showed the bullets to show them that it wasn't real bullets. I pointed the gun around, pulling the trigger to show them that it does not shoot. It is not a real gun. Calm down. But Brittany saw another chance to get me in trouble. And so did my mother with Munchausen by proxy disease and/or /fictitious by proxy disorder. If you notice by all the evidence entered in by the district attorney, all the video footage of all the police cameras, you'll notice my mother immediately questioning my mental illness and saying that I need to go to a mental hospital, because that's all she does. She has a mental illness herself. Fictitious by proxy disorder, fictitious by proxy disease, where she imposes mental illness and sickness on the people she caregives for so that she can get sympathy from others. Look how good of a mother I am for putting up with such a shitty son. And my stepdad only cares about his daughter. When he came into my life at 2, he was nice to me. The second Brittany was born, he was nice to Brittany. And Dylan just wants to be with my little sister. Not a half bad guy. Wants to be a rapper. Good for him. But I did not do anything wrong. Nothing's broken, nothing's stolen, no one's hurt, no victim, no crime. The only victim in this case is me. They locked me in a cell for a year for me to grieve over my second dead girlfriend. In a cage where somebody has already died. No food, no water, no hour out for a year. I fired all of my lawyers. Public Defender Leah Maloney, Public Defender Meredith Wheeler, and the lawyer that my mother hired. I fired all of them within the first month. I pled not guilty on the first day. You all had 3 months to restore my competency and a 6-month deadline to find me guilty without a reasonable doubt. Regardless. Because nobody should be sitting in a holding cell eating crackers for more than 6 months. If they're truly criminals, you need to find them guilty without a reasonable doubt, with a right to a fast and speedy trial and right to representation, and you need to send them to prison. Otherwise, you need to let them get back to their lives so that they can pay your paychecks.